Welcome back to Fertile Frequencies Radio. I am so excited for today's guest. Nora DeBora is a functional fertility coach, holistic nutritionist, and fertility awareness practitioner, and the host of the Ultimate Pregnancy Prep podcast, who helps women and couples prepare for pregnancy and have a healthy baby. Through her signature private one-on-one fertility coaching, she helps couples get to the root cause of their health imbalances and coaches them through targeted protocols to improve their fertility outcomes and successfully get pregnant. I am absolutely excited to welcome Nora, and this podcast episode is absolutely incredible, and I just know that you are going to love it. Welcome, Nora.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for having me. I'm so excited to now be on this end of a conversation because last we chatted, I was interviewing you on the podcast, which I know by the time this comes out, your episode will already be out on my podcast. So lots and lots of sharing and caring for our community, which is so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Yeah, it was so fun being on your podcast, and it's so wonderful. You help so many people, and I'm so excited to have you here on Fertile Frequencies, and I absolutely love what you do. I love the integrative approach. Here on Fertile Frequencies, we talk a lot about integrative medicine as well as the energy side and fertility, and I know that you're very open to that as well. So it's very exciting to get your perspective on the menstrual cycle and how people can optimize their fertility to have a healthy pregnancy. So, well, let's just dive right in. Why don't you tell me a little bit about exactly what body literacy is and how women can become more body literate?
Yes. So when I first came across this term body literacy, I was like, what does that even mean? And then as I did a little bit more kind of deep dive into it and did more certifications and learned really it's how well we understand our bodies. And if we think about it, there's financial literacy. How well do you understand your finances and the tax? And I mean, I hate that stuff, but I got to learn. It's really important to learn. So, you can think about literacy in a lot of different categories, but body literacy is all about how well we understand our body. And unfortunately, as women growing up, at least, I'm 41 now. So when I was younger, I didn't really learn much about my body and the menstrual cycle, especially in the school system. We had maybe, was it like grade 7, grade 8, or grade 9 sex ed class. And I think you learn you can get pregnant at any point in time of the cycle. It was probably just like fear-mongering us not to have sex. I understand, but we really didn't learn much about our body. And my mom didn't really teach me much. Also just because she wasn't aware and she wasn't taught by her mom. And so it's really taking the time to learn and understand your body. And as a woman, through the lens of the menstrual cycle. Because if we think about our menstrual cycle, women start to have a menstrual cycle in around 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, depending on your age. And once our hormones kick in and that happens every single month, I want you to think about your menstrual cycle as like your monthly report card, thinking about the environment that you are putting yourself in with regards to stress, nutrition, lifestyle, self-care habits. And those pieces in your environment are going to turn around and reflect in the health of your menstrual cycle. So every month, you're going to have either certain symptoms or discomforting symptoms, or you might be feeling great and not have too many menstrual cycle irregularities or challenges, which is going to help tell you, hey, is something up? Is something wrong? To really help you understand your body and your health so that we can advocate for ourselves, learn how to take care of ourselves better, and really just become more empowered women. So that is really kind of in a nutshell what, in my opinion, what body literacy is. So I think, it is part of my passion as well. This is why I also started my own podcast many years ago, because I realized as I came into this space and how many women and couples, I guess the male partner, they want to learn about it too, because they're like, I know my woman is not nice to me a couple days before her period. So he also learns how to, change his behavior or support her to really kind of make sure that the relationship stays healthy as well. So, I started the podcast to really empower women about understanding their body through the lens of the menstrual cycle and to become what's called body literate. And I'm just very passionate about this topic.
Yeah, and I love that, Nora. That's so wonderful. And, it is unfortunate that there isn't more education on hormones and the cycle, as well as men's health too. And we are, pushed so much to not get pregnant. And then all of a sudden, we get where we want to start a family and it's, oh, now get pregnant body. So we also in the subconscious mind are planting seeds too about for so many years, not get pregnant, now get pregnant. So I think about all of that, everything that you said. It's so wonderful that you're educating people. And also it's interesting because a lot of women think that they are ovulating just because they are having their period. And there is so much more, as you know, and we're going to get more into the specifics of that because you definitely are an expert in this area and helping people really about their cycles. But I have so many people that will come to me that are having periods and they think they're ovulating because they just, well, I'm having my period, so I must be ovulating. And that's not the case. What about, I know that you specialize in the fertility awareness method, and I know that that is something that a lot of people I'm sure know about. Maybe some people don't know a lot about it and want to learn more. So this is the perfect opportunity for any of you that are listening to have Nora talk about it and educate us on it. So how can someone use it to optimize their fertility? And what is the fertility awareness method?
Yeah, so that kind of goes one layer down from what is body literacy, right? Understanding the body through the lens of the menstrual cycle. Okay, so now we need to, how do we understand our body through the lens of the menstrual cycle? Well, what do we do? Most women or most of us think, okay, I get my period every 28 days or I get my period every 30 days. Oh, that must mean I have a healthy menstrual cycle. Well, that is like one tiny little fraction piece of the puzzle. And so you can actually learn a lot about your body through cycle charting. And the fertility awareness method is a kind of methodology that I was trained in many years ago, which is also, I call it cycle charting. So this could be that you are tracking certain fertile signs throughout your cycle to see if they fall within the healthy parameters. Because generally speaking, women are not robots. We are not every 28 days we get our period. Every woman ovulates on cycle day 14. Every woman has a 14-day luteal phase. It doesn't happen like that, right? Our bodies are always kind of nuanced and changing, and our menstrual cycle parameters are changing based on the environment around us. Maybe how stressed we are that month. Maybe if we're going through a massive job transition or, a big divorce or a big there was like a death in the family. Maybe you're traveling. Maybe you got really sick and you were dealing with a health issue. Or maybe you're not eating enough calories. Maybe you're over-exercising. Maybe you're under-exercising. All of these pieces in your life are going to affect your menstrual cycle. And you can look at different parameters of the menstrual cycle to help you understand more about your menstrual cycle and become body literate through the fertility awareness method. So the fertility awareness method allows you to track this data through a few fertile signs. One of them you might be, you or the listeners who are listening might be familiar with tracking your basal body temperature. And taking your basal body temperature just means you're putting a thermometer under your tongue, so this is orally, in your mouth every single morning before you get out of bed to track your temperature. Because as we'll learn soon, your temperature actually rises and shifts in the luteal phase because of rising progesterone. And this can actually tell you and help you confirm whether or not you've ovulated. It's quite fascinating and cool once you actually start doing it and start tracking the data. So tracking your basal body temperature is a piece of the fertility awareness method that you can use. Another big piece of this is tracking your cervical mucus. Cervical mucus only really proliferates in and around our fertile window. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Yes, I encourage you to play with your cervical mucus and look at it and be curious. And really just understanding your cervical mucus, because it can also help you time sex if you are looking to get pregnant. So, another fertile sign is tracking your cervical mucus. You can even go as far as tracking your cervical position, because when you are more fertile, when you're in that fertile window, your cervix is a lot lower and it's open. And outside of that fertile window, your cervix is actually closed, hard, and a lot higher up in the body. So there are different things that you can track with regards to the fertility awareness method. And so that's in a nutshell kind of what the fertility awareness method is. There's apps that you can use, people like to use, or some people like to use. So you pretty much have to write down the data and track it so you can actually see month over month, what is happening. But there's tons of apps. I mean, there's tons of technological devices now as well that you can pee on every day and get your metabolites of your hormones throughout your cycle. So it can do what's called cycle mapping. That's kind of like a step up from just doing the basal body temp and collecting your cervical mucus. I mean, we live in a time now where there's so many options available, which is amazing and cool, but can also be very overwhelming. And then you're confused and like, how do I even interpret all of this? I don't understand. So a lot of my clients do a little bit of both. And yeah, you can pretty much use that data to really, again, help you become more body literate, understand if your menstrual cycle is healthy for pregnancy. Because as we know, in order to get pregnant, you do have to ovulate. So when are you ovulating? How long is your follicular and your luteal phase? What does that mean? What does that look like to really kind of help? And then from that data, you can then say, hey, I know I've got scanty short periods or no cervical mucus or a really short luteal phase, which can then be your first way into how do I optimize my fertility to get pregnant? Now you've got some data, and then, you can work with someone or do your research to figure out how to optimize those fertile signs or pieces to help you optimize it every month so that eventually you can get pregnant.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. That's all really interesting and very, very helpful. Question for you, because there might be people listening that, they're interested in fertility, but maybe they're not necessarily trying to get pregnant. Maybe they're interested in their hormones and their cycle too. Do you help people that are not necessarily trying to get pregnant? Because I know that you can use the fertility awareness method if you're not trying to conceive at the moment too, as a form of birth control. So is there a difference in that?
There's no difference because you're pretty much just collecting. You're going to learn how to collect the data, which is still going to give you information about your health through the lens of your menstrual cycle. Now, you're absolutely right that the fertility awareness can be used, and a lot of women and couples do use it as a practice for making sure that they don't get pregnant because they don't want to go on birth control, because they don't want to be on hormonal contraceptives, which is a beautiful, incredible thing. I was not taught this as a young girl. I went on birth control for 10 years, from 15 to 25, like all my friends did. We're all like, oh, time to go to the birth control clinic and let's get our pills. Like, it was just part of the culture of my generation. It's just what you did. But we know that there are a lot of negative effects from the birth control. And as well, we also know that if a young girl is having painful periods, long irregular cycles, and they go to their doctor, the doctor just prescribes them a birth control pill, which isn't getting to the root cause of the problem because there are some imbalances in her body. So she goes on the pill, it quote unquote fixes her period. Then she gets off 10 to 15 years later and she's like, I want to get pregnant. But guess what? All of those problems are still there. You haven't really done anything to fix it. Now you're just back in the same place, and you've wasted you could have taken that 10 to 15 years to work on your menstrual cycle so that when you're ready to get pregnant, you can. So the fertility awareness method can absolutely be used as a tool to help you not get pregnant, because as we know, you can only scientifically really get pregnant within like a five days within your menstrual cycle, in that fertile window. After you have ovulated, it is scientifically impossible to get pregnant. So you cannot get pregnant after you've ovulated. Then there is a short period of time in the follicular phase or in the pre-ovulatory phase, the first half of the cycle before you ovulate, also where you can't get pregnant because your egg hasn't developed enough yet and you're not in that fertile window, so you can't get pregnant. But you don't understand and know this until you really start to dive into your menstrual cycle parameters, learn how to track it, and then you see trends. You typically know every month, okay, my period comes usually within 30 days. I usually start to see cervical mucus maybe around cycle day 14, 15. So you start to really understand your body's trends, which can then help you abstain from having sex in a certain period of time. And then you can use that for abstaining from pregnancy. Now, a lot of my clients who come to me actually have kind of like two camps of clients who I work with. Ones that are trying to conceive without success, who have maybe been diagnosed with unexplained infertility, working with a fertility clinic, or just trying on their own without success for many months or many years and looking for more support. And then I have more of the proactive person, the person who is like, I know I want to get pregnant in like a year and a half from now. And I want to be super proactive, understand my body, optimize it the best way I can so that when I am ready to get pregnant, the pressure is off. I'm not, scrambling and feeling panicked because, I haven't done this work up front. So the those proactive people, some of them also come to me saying, hey, like I have PCOS and I have irregular cycles. And again, I want to do everything that I can to understand my cycle and optimize it so that when I am ready to get pregnant, everything is looking good. So those proactive people can either have regular menstrual cycles and they just want to optimize as best as they can, or they can also have certain conditions, pre-existing conditions, endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, hypothalamic amenorrhea. That's just when you're not getting a period. It really all depends. And they know they do want to get pregnant in the next year or two. So they're just kind of taking matters into their own hands and doing what they can up front. So absolutely. At the end of the day, the one goal is still the same. Understand your body through the lens of the menstrual cycle. And then we can, depending on where there's deficiencies or gaps, we can help fill that in. It does take time so that ultimately when you are ready to get pregnant, you're good to go, or you've been trying for a while without success. And now instead of maybe having to go to fertility treatment, we can maybe deal with this before taking it to that next intervention.
I think it's important to note too, I love how, you're talking about a lot about the menstrual cycle, but also you said some things in there that I think are really powerful to elaborate on. It's really important to really prepare your body for a healthy pregnancy. And I think that learning about your cycle and about your hormones, it's not so much about getting obsessed over diet. I think I see that a lot with people and supplements. It's just more, it's you're doing a lot of different things and you're just trying to make healthy changes, learn about your body. And it makes it so much easier because those miscarriage rates can really be cut down. And those are very painful to go through, when people have miscarriages. And so anything you can do, not saying it's not going to happen because there's always, we can't always control everything. But preparing your body is really, really powerful. So it sounds like you help people with that too. And I think that that's really wonderful as well. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that and how that affects the menstrual cycle too.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it takes the pressure off. No matter where my client is on the journey, I'm so excited to work with them. And I always feel so honored that, they found me and they trust me to help them guide them through the process. That's first and foremost. But especially for both camps, I call them kind of like my reactive clients and my proactive clients, right? And so it's, when my clients start working with me and start to really do cycle charting, get deep into it, and, we've got their charts and we do blood labs. And I also do, I think you mentioned at the beginning, I also do comprehensive hormone testing through the Dutch test. I also do gut microbiome and vaginal microbiome testing because we have to remember, guys, our body is one holistic system. Everything is operating and working together. The menstrual cycle is a good piece of data to help us take that first dive in. But then if the parameters are off, like where is that coming from and why is that happening? Maybe we need to do a deep dive into your hormones. So we look at your blood labs. We do comprehensive hormone tests. Maybe there's a gut infection going on, or you've got really bad irregular bowel movements, or you're constipated. What's going on in the gut? There was a million variables as to what could potentially be happening. But I find with the trying to conceive community, one of the most empowering things that you can give to somebody is teaching them how to understand their body again through the lens of the menstrual cycle, because now they're like, all of this makes sense. I understand. When they go back to the fertility clinic or back to their OBGYN or their doctor's office, they have so much more knowledge. They're so much more well-equipped and they, it helps them become more confident and empowered on the journey. And they feel more hopeful. They feel less defeated. They feel less frustrated. And, it doesn't necessarily mean you get pregnant right off the bat, but throughout the process, you're empowering yourself. You're giving yourself knowledge. You're giving yourself confidence, which is going to help remove some of that extra stress and anxiety, which could be, ramping up that cortisol, which is then going to dampen the other hormones more. It's just one big cyclical effect. So did that answer the question? I'm trying to even remember what the question was now.
Absolutely wonderful. I think it was, how can people optimize their body to prepare for a healthy?
Yeah.
It's really.
And even if they're not trying, that's what it was. Because even if they're not trying right now, that you still can. Yes. Yes.
I'm wondering, it's different for everybody. I know that I attract clients that have unique sort of things going on. What do you feel that with your work, is there one thing that you wish that everyone knew that is trying to conceive that you maybe could give just a quick advice, maybe common sort of something that you see a lot of in your clients that you wish that people knew before they started trying, or maybe people that are trying now that are frustrated?
There is hope and practitioners out there who can help you figure it out. I cannot tell you with how many clients come to me and they've spent tens of thousands of dollars on fertility treatment, or they are working with their OBGYN. I even have some clients working with their naturopath and not even giving them the correct advice on what they can be doing. And so by the time people find me, sometimes they are, years in, thousands of dollars, and they're just so defeated and exhausted and tired. And they always say, oh my gosh, I wish I found you 2 years ago. Like, I wish I found you sooner. I wish I found you sooner. So be proactive. That's what I would say to as many people as I can, is just be proactive and start teaching yourself and listening to podcasts and doing your research and finding, a couple practitioners online, because there's so many resources out there and there are so many people out there who do this. There's more and more podcasts popping up in the fertility space, like every month and every year. I would say that you're a new one as well, right, Lindsay? So yeah. There's so much resources out there, which I do understand can also be very overwhelming. And you're just like, oh my gosh, it's too overwhelming. It's making me more anxious. What I would recommend is take a little bit of time to kind of sift through and find your top 1 or 2 practitioners, and then follow them and just say, okay, I'm committed to following this person. I resonate with this person. I can tell they have education, they have experience, they know what they're talking about, and then stick to it, as opposed to like following 15 people and maybe getting contradictory advice and then feeling overwhelmed and confused and not knowing what to do next. So being proactive and just knowing that even if your OB or your fertility doctor come back and say, well, all your blood labs are normal, everything's fine, I don't know why you can't get pregnant, you have to go to the clinic or you have to do IVF, that is 100% not always the case that has to happen. There are alternative ways. And I see it all the time in my practice, all the time. So like for the people who have been struggling for a while, that is my message to you. For those who know you want to get pregnant in the next couple of years, start taking the time now to understand your body through the lens of the menstrual cycle, maybe start cycle charting, and just, I've got tons of resources, free resources on what you can do already just to get started with learning your body and optimizing your health. So start early. Don't wait until, hey, it's January 2026. I know I want to get pregnant then. I'm just going to do what I want throughout the year. Come January 1st, 2026, okay, I'm ready, let's go. And now all of a sudden you realize, oh no, wait a minute. Something is off in my body, and now you need to start doing digging, but now you also want to start trying to conceive. So that is a big piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, I think it's really important. I always tell my clients and listeners, that it's very important to resonate with your providers as well. And just
Absolutely.
Because someone has very high success rates and so worked with them doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be the match for you. And referrals are great, but I think it's really understanding that universally you're meant to work with who you're meant to work with. And those people you'll find them. You just have to be open and receptive. So I love that. It's that you said, make sure that you resonate with the people and doing your research. And yes, there's so much misinformation. There's so much, push to go right to IVF. And I agree. I don't think it's always necessary. I think sometimes it might be, depending on the situation and what that particular patient is dealing with. Most things, especially in unexplained infertility, it's just you haven't quite found the unique path for that particular person and what their needs are. And many providers, not all, but they want to completely bypass the education part. And exactly, people like you, Nora, that exist to really help people to dig in deeper, to really understanding their bodies and education is super, super powerful.
It's going to give you it just gives you lifelong knowledge. And then if you have a little baby girl, you can pass this knowledge on to her, and even a little baby boy, so he can be a better partner to his female counterpart if that's who he chooses to be with down the line. Like, we just need to educate our younger generation and make them more equipped so they can be more whole, healthy beings. And I do want to say as well, I am not against fertility treatment. I have had many clients who just at the end of the day, they go for fertility treatment, and I help them prepare for fertility treatment so that hopefully we can get that first time successful. So fertility treatment is a beautiful thing if that is the path that you choose. Again, there can be a progression to get there, but I'm grateful for fertility clinics that exist. I really am. It really helps families. It really helps couples build their families. So absolutely. But again, resonating with the fertility doctor, with the fertility clinic, and whoever it is that you decide to work with. Like, maybe somebody listens to me and they're like, I just can't stand Nora's voice, so I will never work with her because I don't like her voice. That's totally okay. I'm not offended. Like, you got to find your person. I believe there's more than enough people out there to be my clients, and I believe that there are more than enough people like me who can serve people who need the help. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And it is. I mean, we live in a time that we're so fortunate to be able to have integrative medicine. And, I believe that that's probably in most cases really what works, is that we all integrate together rather than one way is better than the other.
Yes.
There are cases where people absolutely do not need IVF and they're being told that they do. So absolutely agree with that. Oh, universe, the universe is so powerful in how you connect with people.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time. In your fertility journey and anything, you can manifest anything into your experience really just by allowing yourself to not have the doubt that it's just, that right person's going to show up, or that book's going to show up, or that podcast is going to show up. I'm going to find a solution.
I have a story about that. Actually, I just got a new client who she has been dealing with chronic UTIs for like the last 6 months, like chronic UTI every single time. She's even scared to have sex with her partner now because she knows she's going to get a UTI. And she goes back to the doctor every time, and the doctor gives her antibiotics. And month after month, it's the same routine. And she was starting to get so frustrated, and the antibiotics are not doing good for her gut. And, it's just over and over again. So she put this whole document together and brought it to her doctor and was like, look, like, I'm not taking this as the answer anymore to like the antibiotics as a solution, because clearly it's not working. Look at the history, look at the trajectory. She started doing a little bit more research and digging and diving in, and why are they happening, and this, that, and the other. And she's like, the doctor would not even look at the piece of paper. She got so frustrated. She left. She went home. She was walking on the treadmill, she said. And she was looking at her podcast, and all of a sudden, one of my episodes just popped out in front of her. It says, is your vaginal microbiome healthy for pregnancy? Because I did a podcast on that, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago. And she was just like, oh my God, this is exactly what I've been looking for. She listens to it. She booked a discovery call. We get on the call. I had probably chatted with her and her husband for about 45 minutes. And she was so grateful for me to just take the time to listen to her. And then she was like, I want to work with you. And so now she signed on as a client, and I'm really excited to help her over the next few months get to the bottom of these UTIs and deal with it a little bit more holistically now, because she's just been on too much antibiotics, and help her get pregnant as opposed to just spinning her wheels. And so again, she's like, honestly, I was just walking on the treadmill and just your podcast just literally popped up in front of me. Just, is your vaginal microbiome healthy for pregnancy? She read the show notes and she was like, oh my God, this is me. And then she listens. I have a lot of my clients will tell me that, because most of my clients do find me from my podcasts, and they were like, I found this episode and it was exactly what I needed to hear. And they book their call, and it's just divine timing, which I love. I love, love, love. And I truly believe in that as well.
She probably asked and then didn't think about it again. And that's generally how the manifesting works, is that when we ask, the universe will find a solution. It's when we try to control it or get in the way So she just allowed the solution to come in. Here comes you, Nora, and you guys are a great match, and you're going to do great things to help her. So that's really awesome. Well, I want to ask you a few more questions. So can you tell us maybe what the 5 top parameters are of a healthy menstrual cycle?
Yes. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the body literacy and the fertility awareness method that I was talking about earlier. So if we take it one level further, one level deeper, let's now talk about those. I kept saying parameters of a healthy menstrual cycle. There are 5 of them that I will just briefly educate you on now. I will share those with you now just so you can have a general understanding. At the beginning, I did mention most people think, okay, if I get my period every 28 days, that means I have a healthy menstrual cycle. Well, no, that's not necessarily the case. So let's start with the first parameter. The first parameter is overall cycle length. So that is a parameter. It is important to have fairly regular, consistent cycles. The parameter specifically states that a healthy menstrual cycle is anywhere between 24 to 35 days in length, with no more than 8 days of variation from cycle to cycle. So maybe you have like a 26-day cycle, you're from the day of your period until the day before of your next period. That's what I mean by cycle length. I'm not talking about your period length. I'm talking about the full cycle length. So maybe you have a 26-day cycle, 1 month, and then the month after that, you have a 28-day cycle, then it jumps down to 27, then maybe 30. Those little bits of variation from cycle to cycle are normal and okay. It's when you have a 25-day cycle, then a 45-day cycle, then maybe a 30-day cycle, and then you're jumping to a 50-day cycle. That should be a red flag. So first off is overall cycle length. Second parameter is length and quality of menstruation. So we have to think about the quality of the blood that is coming out as another cycle parameter. Unfortunately, it is very common, it is very, it is very common, but it isn't necessarily normal for someone to have such heavy, painful periods and bleeds. It is very, very common in our world, but it is not necessarily normal because somebody has experienced this for a long time. They say, well, this is normal for me. No, again, if you're having painful periods where you need to take Tylenol or Advil or ibuprofen every single month, that is a red flag that something is imbalanced or something is off, or maybe there's systemic inflammation. You should not have to take pain medication every cycle to get through your cycle. Yes, there will be some cramping. You are going to feel a little bit tired, like our body is going through a cycle, and there are changes in our mood and our energy and sleep quality. But if it is so debilitating that is affecting your day-to-day quality of life, this is not ideal. So your menstrual cycle length should be anywhere between 3 to 7 days long. Obviously, when we're younger, it's probably going to be a little bit longer. As we age, our cycle does get shorter. But if you're trying to get pregnant, we're always looking for really healthy, fire engine red blood that is pretty consistent for about 2 to 3 days. A lot of women have short, scanty periods. This could be a sign of low estrogen, or maybe you just have a lot of kind of oxidized blood where it's just quite brown and you don't have much red flow. So really looking at the length and quality of the menstruation is another parameter to look at. One additional tiny piece that I do want to add to this is how much you're actually bleeding as well. If you're soaking through like 10 super tampons a day for 5 days, you're losing too much blood. There's also a parameter with how much blood is healthy to lose. Anywhere between 25 to 80 milliliters of blood for the entire cycle is quote unquote normal or healthy. That is about, on the top end, 3 ounces of blood losing for your full period, or anywhere between 1 to 3 ounces of blood. If you're losing 5 to 10 ounces of blood, that's going to have a big impact on your iron levels. Potentially you're anemic. There's a lot of other variables and reasons as to, first of all, why that's happening, and then what health consequence that's going to do for you every cycle as you're kind of bleeding and losing that much blood. So that is a sign, right? Maybe it's urging you to go in and check for polyps, for fibroids. Maybe there's something else going on there. The next third parameter is looking at your follicular phase, or what's known as your pre-ovulatory phase. Within that pre-ovulatory phase of your cycle, so I want you to think about your full cycle as, one full cycle, and it's not necessarily cut in half, but let's just say it's divided by ovulation. You have ovulation somewhere in the middle of your cycle. And before ovulation, you have your pre-ovulatory follicular phase. And after ovulation, you have your post-ovulatory or luteal phase. It's the same thing. So the third parameter is making sure that you have a healthy pre-ovulatory or follicular phase. And what we want to see in a pre-ovulatory healthy follicular phase is cervical mucus production. So cervical mucus is another big one that we really want to make sure we are looking for and looking at when we are trying to get pregnant or even not trying to get pregnant. Cervical mucus does proliferate closer to you ovulating. So ideally, you want to see non-peak, which is kind of like a tacky lotion type consistency cervical mucus. And then as you come closer to ovulation, you get peak cervical mucus, which is resembles raw egg whites. So always look, you don't have a yeast infection if you're seeing this all the time. I mean, if it's discolored, if it smells, or if you're itchy, maybe it is a sign of a yeast infection. But I remember before I learned about cervical mucus, I was always like, what is all this extra? Why is this happening to me? Why do I have all this extra discharge, right? So understanding your cervical mucus pattern in the pre-ovulatory phase or follicular phase is that third parameter. And then the fourth parameter is ovulation. We need to make sure we are ovulating every month. And so there's two ways for you to do that. The first way is that you can use an ovulation predictor kit, and you can check if you are having what's called a luteinizing hormone surge, because your luteinizing hormone surges right before you ovulate. And then again, you can use your cervical mucus and your basal body temperature to help you confirm ovulation. I'm not going to get into the details of that because we can spend a whole podcast talking about that. But the fifth parameter is ovulation. You need to make sure that you are having healthy ovulation. And then the fifth parameter is healthy luteal phase. So that post-ovulatory luteal phase is very, very important, especially if you are trying to conceive, because in the luteal phase, the main hormone that's rising is your progesterone. And when your progesterone rises, that's naturally going to rise your body temperature. Well, why is your body temperature rising in your luteal phase? Because your body thinks, hey, I might be pregnant. And just like a mother hen sits on its eggs for 21 days before the eggs hatch, she cannot get off those eggs before they hatch. Otherwise, it will compromise the egg from hatching. She has to keep them warm. So our bodies are doing the same thing hormonally. Naturally, our progesterone rises in that luteal phase. It's keeping our potentially fertilized eggs warm. And then if we're not pregnant, we get our period. And then if we are, body temperature stays up. So we want to make sure that we have at least a 10-day luteal phase, at minimum 10-day luteal phase. That's going to help us for implantation. Anywhere from like a 10 to 14-day luteal phase is ideal, with no premenstrual spotting and no debilitating PMS. So that is kind of just general information about understanding the fifth parameter and whether or not a luteal phase is healthy. So it just gave you lots. I hope that wasn't too much.
No, not at all. It's great information. I'm sure that anyone listening to this is definitely appreciating all of that. It's very simplified. So, as simplified as you can get it when we're talking about the cycle and hormones. But education is power, and so that's absolutely amazing. So thank you for all of that. Yeah, the luteal phase, it's definitely an area that I know that with my clients that I will see people have a deficient luteal phase. And so people don't always know what to do with that, and also don't understand that progesterone is also part of the early parts of pregnancy too.
Exactly.
Educate people a lot about that as well. Progesterone is something that I feel so many people are deficient in, and there isn't education on it. People will go to have their blood work done, and they're not even having their progesterone tested on the right day.
Exactly. And even when you do have your progesterone tested on the right day, remember that is just one tiny little data point in time, because your progesterone levels actually also fluctuate in one day. So depending on the time of the day that you get tested or where it's sitting at that time, which is why it's good to use that in conjunction with cycle charting, right? And looking at your full cycle, understanding your chart. When are you ovulating? What are your temps in your luteal phase? Are you hitting your high temps that you should be? Is the length of the luteal phase good? Are you premenstrual spotting? Are you having debilitating PMS symptoms? Because that could also mean that there is an estrogen deficiency, or maybe there's a little bit of maybe you have with estrogen dominance, but not because you have too much estrogen, but because you have too little progesterone. So it's not now about detoxing estrogen, because you don't want to lower estrogen if it's already at a good range. The ratios are just off. So you really need to look at it from like a whole picture, because sometimes you could be doing the wrong thing, not realizing when if you're just looking, you're kind of looking at the big puzzle through one tiny little lens. So yeah, really, that's why I would say fertility awareness method and cycle charting can help you start with looking at the whole picture and then use all those pieces of the menstrual cycle parameters to say, hey, I'm not really producing cervical mucus. Maybe that's also estrogen deficiency. Or my luteal phase isn't long enough. Hey, maybe that's progesterone deficiency. Or maybe I'm not getting enough of a LH peak or spike for healthy ovulation. Or maybe I'm having painful periods. And so when you can kind of piece together all of the parameters that you have for your cycle, you then get to say, now I know I want to test this, and this, because it will give you now more data to look at and figure out and say, okay, what is the big picture that's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, data is really powerful too. I generally recommend people have 3 months of data at least.
At least minimum. Yes. I love that you just said that. Yes.
Because you can really see, and also if you are trying to conceive, that progesterone, that temperature never goes down.
Exactly.
And it just keeps going up. And then that's a lot of women will actually know that they're pregnant
before they take the test because their progesterone hasn't dropped. Exactly. Or the temperature hasn't dropped. Yes.
Right. So cycle tracking is super, super powerful in either side of the spectrum, whether you're trying to get pregnant or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, listen, Nora, this was absolutely wonderful. I mean, I just am so excited about the work that you're doing and providing education to so many people. It really, really needs to continue happening. More people like yourself. I hope that more people start coming out and educating, because as a woman, we're both women, but also just partners, and couples, people need to know about their bodies, and there just isn't enough education. And so it's really powerful for what you're doing and giving people the opportunity to have this resource. There will be a lot more coming from you, which is absolutely amazing. So I know that you have a free gift. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I just can't remember which free gift I gave you because I have a couple free gifts. Did I tell you which one I gave?
Yes, you did. But you want to talk about a couple of them that you like?
Yes. Tell me the one I told you.
The one, how to eat for your menstrual cycle to help conceive.
Okay, good. So the 2 free gifts that I have, again, it's kind of like going back to those 2 camps that I was talking about at the beginning for maybe the proactive and the reactive person. But I would say, the first free gift, the one that you had mentioned, is how to eat for your menstrual cycle. So I'm a holistic nutritionist as well, and I truly believe in the power of food and really nourishing your body through food. So I have a free guide on how you can learn on how to eat for your menstrual cycle, because depending on where we are in our cycle, our hormones are rising and falling, and there are certain deficiencies in certain times of the cycle. So there are different ways that you can optimize your menstrual cycle through nutrition. And I teach you how to do that through my free guide, How to Eat to Get Pregnant. And I think I give you recipes as well for each week of the menstrual cycle in that guide. The second, and I'll make sure to give you the link for the second free guide. The second free guide is if you are trying to get pregnant and you have not had success yet, I give you my top 3 things to do to help you get pregnant if you have been struggling. So that free guide will give you more information. I talk quite a bit on gut health in there. I also talk about, you asked me a question at the beginning, and I was like, I need to remember to say this at some point before we get off this interview. What is one thing you would tell anybody out there who's maybe trying to conceive is get your partner's sperm tested. That is a big, big one. I talk about that quite a bit in that second free guide as well. And that's a huge one. I see a lot of the time the female come to me, we do all of this work. We're taking months on tracking her cycle, doing the Dutch test, doing all the things, and her partner still hadn't gotten the sperm tested. And we finally get the sperm tested, and we're dealing with potentially sometimes what's called male factor fertility. So really, really low parameters. And it's like the whole time, like if we knew this 5 months ago, and, I don't put pressure on my clients. I'm just always meeting them where they're at. But I always really try and encourage everybody from the get-go to get your partner's sperm tested. It is a thing, my friends. If you're just coming into this space, male factor fertility is a growing issue. And so there's a lot of at-home semen analysis test kits that you can do. I give information about that in my free guide as well. But get your partner's sperm tested. And then you'll also understand and understand how to interpret it and read it from the guide as well. So yes, those are the 2 free guides that I have. And don't forget about your partner sperm.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, just I hear you on that. It's 50-50,
Yes.
We as a society for many years thought that we pushed more of the energy towards the female health, the woman's health, and it's not, it's and the sperm also has such an impact on the health of the embryo and
Yes,
the pregnancy too. So yeah,
exactly.
love that you push that and to really educate people on that as well, and also shared that with the listeners, because that is something that I talk about often too. So it's wonderful to hear other people educating on that as well. So thank you. And then Nora, how can people find you? I'll make sure that I put this in the show notes, but how can people find you if they want to work with you or learn more about you?
Yeah. So the first place to go, I would just say, is my website. It's www.naturallynora. There's no H at the end of Nora, naturallynora.ca. I am Canadian, so don't go .com, it's .ca. And then from there, you can also find my free guides. So both of my free guides are linked on there. I've got tons of resources. I've got online self-guided programs that you could do. I also do, my bread and butter and where I shine the most and where I get the most joy out of all my work is my one-on-one private fertility coaching. That is what I love to do, what I absolutely love to do. And so I am taking on clients. I have multiple different packages that any couple can buy, depending on, how long they want my support for, how many sessions they get. But when you do work one-on-one with me, you get access to all of the additional functional lab testing. You always get access to my online Get Pregnant program, which is a massive portal on all the education that you possibly need to get on preparing for pregnancy, because we only have so many hours for personalized coaching that I don't want to waste that time just educating. So you go to the podcast, and then you also do the online portal, which you only get as a client to kind of educate yourself, learn how to cycle chart, learn how to, download the app, set up the app properly, and get everything going. And yeah, you get the coaching plus the online portal and access to all the testing. So if you're looking for additional support, check out my website. Everything is there. And last 2 things is definitely find the Ultimate Pregnancy Prep Podcast. I'm at maybe 131 episodes now. It's been out for a few years. We're at almost 300,000 downloads. I'm so excited. So check that out. And then you can also find me on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. Just Instagram is my channel. I don't have the capacity for anything else. And you can find me at naturally_Nora.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Nora. It was so wonderful to have you today.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you so much for having me.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Fertile Frequencies. Remember, your fertility is so much more than just your physical body. It's your energy, mindset, and the whole you. If you're ready to turn those what ifs into, oh my God, it's happening, make sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review, because your vibe deserves to be heard. Until next time, beautiful, keep your frequency high, your heart open, and your spirit ready to receive all the fertile winds coming your way. You've got this, and I've got you. See you next time on Fertile Frequencies Radio.